My name is Dacre Stoker. I'm the great-grandnephew of Bram Stoker. He's the author of Dracula. I'm the author of Dracul, along with J.D. Barker. You're listening to Horror Film Face-Off.
The Longbox Crusade presents an action film face-off holiday special. It's Horror Film Face-Off, and this episode, it's 1989 versus 1993.
Two scary films enter.
One scary film leaves.
2 men enter, 1 man leaves. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. 2 men enter, 1 man
But it ain't about how hard you hit. It's about how hard you can get hit and keep moving forward. How much you can take and keep moving forward. That's how winning is done. Now, if you know what you're worth, then go out and get what you're worth. But you gotta be willing to take the hits.
Oh my goodness, everybody. Welcome back to Action Film Face Off, or in this case, Horror Film Face Off. It's the Halloween special, and this is the show where 2 random years are selected. My brother will bring a horror film from one of the random years. I bring a horror film from the other random year. And then those 2 films will do battle using a variety of criteria, and the champion will be crowned by the end of the episode. I am Jared Albert, the Death Probe. My co-host is my brother Jason, the Weasel Skull. We are both military combat vets who take our action very seriously, but not too seriously. So let's have some fun. Let's have some Halloween fun. I'm wearing a costume. I have the sheet with the 2 holes cut out of it. I did it Charlie Brown style, though. I cut a few extra holes in it just for fun. Jason, what are you wearing for Halloween this year?
I'm David S. Pumpkins. I'm my own thing. Yes, indeed. We are going to score each of today's films on a scale of 1 to 10 in 5 categories. Those categories are story, overall spectacle, best horror scene, the hero, and the villain. And if you were thinking that since this is a special, we'd actually put it in the right order this time, you would be wrong. We're leaving it out of order to make sure you're paying attention. That's right, folks. We're not doing this because we've been lazy for 6 years. We're doing this for you.
It's trick or treat, man, and this is the trick portion.
That's right. All right. But then there will be the deduction round where up to 10 points can be subtracted from the film's total for whatever we determine is the low point of the movie.
Thank you, David S. Pumpkins. And as we've been doing for a couple of years now, we have our sniper. Our sniper has just 1 point to give in each category. So the sniper can sway the scoring for a total of 5 points. Let us meet our sniper for this special Halloween episode. It is Jim, the Joe Junkie. Jim Meal, welcome to Horror Film Face Off, Jim.
How are we doing today? Thanks for having me.
What's your costume?
I really don't have one. I mean, I'm usually not this good looking, so I guess you could say that's my costume.
Oh, okay. You've cleaned yourself up for this episode. It's cleaned up, Jim.
So it's James now, if you please.
James, correct. Yes. I'll go get your drinks later.
All right. Let's get into the meat and the potatoes. You have one question to answer. Jason and I are judging you. What are 3 of your favorite horror films? Go.
Now, when I did this, I was thinking horror suspense. Okay, so
that's fair.
I stretched a little bit. First one is Signs.
Oh, I like Signs a lot.
That's good.
Yeah, by an early M. Night Shyamalan. What Lies Beneath?
Oh,
with
Harrison Ford. Yes.
Yep. And of the original Nightmare on Elm Street.
Johnny Depp.
Who didn't make it all the way through, did he?
He did not. He had a serious waterbed incident, if I remember.
Yes. Yep.
All right. Now, before our 2 films enter the Videodome arena, we are thrilled to kick off this episode with those special shout-outs to our Crusaders Club members. These are the fine folks who have joined our crusade. They enjoy early access to special Longbox episodes. They get extra items in their trick-or-treat goodie bag this time of year. Offer not available in all areas. And so much more. These are the folks reaping benefits and giving some much appreciated support to our show.
Angelica, Werewolf in London.
Oh, get a big dish of beef chow mein. Oh, burned Elvis.
Bill Beer Splitting Scream.
Blast it or stash it or slash it.
Braxton Undertaker Wood.
Captain Entrails a P.
Clark Scarecrow in the Westfield.
Creepy Clinton Robeson. I thought you were going to make up some Halloween names. That's just what we call him, right?
No, that's just because he's in the basement. Does it well?
Oh,
Yeah.
this is the Halloween. Okay, got it.
Devilish Dave Collins.
Evil Eye Ezra Gallo.
Gary V, and the V stands for vampire.
Gerald Gangrene.
Jason Voorhees Keen.
Jason Ladyfingers.
Jeremy L. And the L stands for lunatic.
Jim Head in a Jarman.
Jim Meal of Brains.
Braids. Jinx Joe Thomas.
Jigsaw John Watson.
Josh Strickland, Principal of Pain.
Candace Mental Ward.
Candy Corn Kathy Bright.
Mark of the Beast, Ross.
Matt and Lissy Poltergeist So.
Murderous Maxwell Traver.
Miranda W, and the W stands for Witchcraft.
PD Devons. And the PD stands for Probably Deranged.
Paul Bearer Hicks.
Rick of Jeff and Rick presents Jeff's Dead Body.
Rotting Rob Morgan.
Sinister Samantha Maney.
Shivering Sean Urbanski.
Spidey 6 feet under 7.
Spreadsheet from Beyond the Grave.
They can't all be winners.
Stephen King Cronin.
Tim Vincent Price.
Tony the Pit and the Pennington.
And the Toronto Wolf Cop.
If we missed anyone on the list, we apologize. Remember, we record these episodes well in advance of release. Well, maybe not this one, because we do record it just a couple weeks before Halloween. But hey, if anything went wrong and you're supposed to be on the list and we didn't say your name, send an email to contact@longboxcrusade.com and we will get that straightened out. And if you're asking yourself, how do I become a Crusaders Club member with a 86% chance of having a clever Halloween themed name? Well, it's simple. Just go to patreon.com/longboxcrusade. For as little as $1 a month, you get access to the amazing world of the Crusaders Club. Come check it out.
All right. So the neighborhood cops come and giving us our safety briefing. Let's get those candy bags out and get to trick-or-treating. Let's get back to the scares and learn a little bit about the film frighteners about to battle for your pleasure.
This episode, I was assigned the year of 1989, so I selected Warlock. What year did the randomizer select for you, Jason?
Well, I got 1993, so I'm putting into our videodome arena Warlock 2, the Armageddon.
And it really did work out like that, folks. That is a legit randomizer. And Jason and I were combing through the movies, and I was like, well, I got Warlock. And Jason was like, I got Warlock too. So,
And I'd never seen either one, so this is a great opportunity for me.
there you go. This is a fine matchup, folks. So it's important to point out this isn't Jared versus Jason. We each had to select from our assigned year. I might very well like part 2 better than part 1 or vice versa. This is all about us discussing some beloved horror films and coming to a consensus on which one is going to be this episode's champion. Let's do a quick around the room on where we saw it. I originally saw Warlock Armageddon. I saw the second one. It's the only one I had seen. I found it on VHS and I watched it out in my building. And then when it came up for this horror film face-off, I had never seen original Warlock. So I just watched it off my Plex server and refreshed. I did a refresh on Warlock 2 also on the Plex server. Jason, how'd you watch these?
I had seen neither of them, so I rented them both from Apple for, I think, $5.99 each.
Oh, man, Apple getting pricey with the $6 for the one?
It was pretty pricey. I got.
Man, you can order the DVD for $6.
If I'd planned ahead, I might have done that.
Actually, you know what? In the horror community, the physical media community, just a peek behind the curtain since I do a fair amount of eBay and yard sale and stuff, the horror community pays a bit more. The older horror films on VHS and DVD are a bit more valuable. So you might actually get a pretty good deal.
Well,
Right,
the quality was good, so I mean, I enjoyed it. You get what you pay for sometimes. No commercials, so there was.
All right, Jim, how'd you watch these films?
Well, I'm kind of like the yard sale artist there, like you, Jared, and I'm cheap. I watched them both on Tubi.
They're both available on Tubi.
Yes,
Which
they
means
are.
A couple commercials, right? But
Just a few, not too many.
nice. So
So-
are they commercials for like witchcraft items?
No. But I muted them.
Awesome. All right, folks, here's your spoiler warning. We're clearly going to spoil both of these movies. They're pretty old, but still, if you've never seen them, like Jason hadn't seen them, I hadn't seen one of them. Jim, had you ever seen these before?
No, this was my first time for both of them. I had heard of them back in the day, but I'd never seen them.
All right. So, spoilers are a thing. We will give you a little musical break here. If you want to pause the show, maybe watch one or both of these films, we'll be waiting for you when you get back. See you on the other side of this break. All right, folks, welcome back. Let me jump in with some quick information on 1989's Warlock.
In a time of fear and suspicion,
You choose to admit your crimes before man and God?
his coming was foretold. Now, he is here.
You know the signs.
You are bewitched.
He has the face of an angel,
Channel me a spirit.
the charm of the devil,
Hear me when I say he's evil. Evil absolute.
and the powers of a god. Satan also has one son.
For you are the first to have laid eyes upon the new Messiah.
Now, an enemy from his past,
Who appointed you executioner?
and a girl from the present.
Do you know what he's capable of?
Next time he's gonna kill me.
I'll not let him harm you.
Are the only hope for the future. This is the terrifying adventure that could set the world on fire. Warlock.
Cast and crew, it's Julia Sands, Laurie Singer, and Richard E. Grant. It's directed by Steve Miner. Synopsis goes a little something like this. And this is a synopsis that I copied right off of a guy who wrote one on IMDb. His name is Ed Sutton. I read his and I was like, that's a really good summary. And I was like, I don't know that I could do any better. So this is a straight copy and paste. Shout out to Ed Sutton on IMDb. In Boston of 1691, a warlock is sentenced to death but escapes magically into the future, which is our present. Well, our present as of 1989. Followed doggedly by a witch hunter. There he is searching for 3 parts of the Devil's Bible, trailed by the witch hunter and the woman whose house he landed in. They must stop him, as the book contains the true name of God, which he can use to uncreate the world. Here's your trivia. Item number 1. When Julian Sands received the script, he assumed it was in the mold of the very popular 80s slashers movies, and he wasn't that interested, so it sat around a while before he got around to reading it. Once he finally actually read it, he was captivated and quickly became excited about doing the film. Item number 2. Screenwriter David Tuohy's original conception was the warlock was a good-natured man who fled the 17th century to avoid religious persecution, only to find himself similarly persecuted in the 20th century. After working on the script for 2 months, he realized it just didn't work and decided to make the character a villain, which is good because that's the hallmark of this whole series of films. And the third and final one, which I think is going to kind of play nicely into Jason's film. The film was originally completed in 1988 and it was one of the very last films by the distributor New World Pictures. They filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy. The film's trailer was actually shown before early 1989 theatrical releases. Instead of going direct to video, however, Warlock was picked up and released in theaters by Trimark in 1991. So its box office success led to a sequel, which was, of course, Warlock 2: The Armageddon, in which Trimark becomes the theatrical release company. So this is one of those weird movies. It's like it was made by one company. It was about to just die. Another company came in, kind of bought out their inventory, and they gave it new life. So you really have Trimark coming in to save the day if you're a Warlock fan.
And now I will give you the rundown on 1993's Warlock, the Armageddon.
All the signs are now in place.
Warlock is here. The son of Satan has returned to fulfill his destiny.
What dost thou command?
There are 5 stones like the one she wears. You must possess them all.
He has 6 days to seek out the stones of power.
Who the hell are you? I'm interested in this stone. It's not for sale. I never said anything about buying.
And hold destruction.
Picasso. Definitely Picasso.
In the palm of his hand.
Tomorrow, everything is gonna be destroyed.
I've come for the stone.
There's only one way to stop a warlock.
You mean like I have to fight? I can't even fight the school bully.
A chosen few stand between him and his quest.
Who am I?
A second warrior.
Get the stone as far away as possible.
They must destroy him.
That's the best you can do!
Before he destroys creation.
Ride's over.
But to conquer the Warlock,
Our betrayals, partners.
they must face the ultimate fear.
You look so tough now, do you, Blondie?
Julian Sands.
It is time.
I welcome my lord!
Warlock. The Armageddon.
Cast and crew includes Julian Sands returning as the Warlock. You've got Chris Young, Paula Marshall, and Bruce Glover. See, Bond connections get you into the credits, even if you weren't like a starring role. As long
Hell
as you're
yeah.
in there and you got some Bond
You're in a
credits.
Bond movie.
You're
You get
getting
mentioned.
you're getting on this list. And it was directed by Anthony Hickox. Synopsis goes a little something like this. The Warlock is back, baby. And this time he wants to bring his daddy with him. In the old-timey days, a group of druids each possessed one of 6 stones. In times of an eclipse, the devil would try to make his way to our world by possessing, you know what, forget it. All you need to know is that the Warlock comes back to recover 6 stones, and a bunch of old-ass druids need to stop him. Since they are, and shall we say, past their prime in Warlock fighting years, they need to recruit the next generation by killing them, resurrecting them, and training them Jedi style. You really should just watch it. Anyway, it's a showdown of good versus evil with the universe itself on the line.
It's all well done.
I don't make sense of it.
It's a movie you let wash over you.
Just sit back. It's like, when you're in basic training, you get out that first weekend and you just make all kinds of bad decisions. Just sit back. Just sit back and let it happen. All right. So trivia. Not a lot of trivia on this one. I looked on IMDb. I looked at a couple other sources. There's not a whole lot. But I guess the original director was Frank LaLoggia. He was originally tasked to direct the film, but his version was deemed too expensive by the studio. And this film was shot in only 38 days. So it was go, go, go. And
That's pretty impressive. I'm not going to lie.
No, I thought so. I was really surprised. And this was R.G. Armstrong. He's the fellow that played Franks, one of the druids. This was his last film before he passed away. R.G. had roles in Predator. He was that general that was so old back then. It looked like somebody assigned him to some jungle and just forgot him. It was like his uniform was all falling apart. He also had a role in Dick Tracy. He played Pruneface. And he had a role with John Wayne in El Dorado. He was in Children of the Corn. And near and dear to Jared's heart, he was in one episode of Quantum Leap. I
love Quantum Leap.
And now that we have the basics on today's contestants.
Ladies and gentlemen, test your might. Let's get ready to
Oh, it's the spooky time. let's get into it. All right, remember, we have 2 films in 5 categories, so Jason and I can match up to 10 times. Go ahead and place your bets now on how many we are going to match. If you want to play old match game, the game within the game. Speaking of scores, as a reminder, as we do on all episodes, your score barometer is as follows. A 5 is solid. It's average. It's something you see on a halfway decent made for TV movie. You go, yeah, I kind of expect that. 4, 3, 2, 1 is not so good. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, get yourself a fine film. With all that said, let's get into round 1.
I just can't take no pleasure in killing.
Round 1 is the story. How engaging is the story? How original was the story? We will start in 1989 with the original Warlock, and we will start with Jim Meals' thoughts on the story.
The story on Warlock, with the time jump to the hero and the villain had to kind of adjust and figure things out as they went along. I thought that was pretty good. It was a typical heist or chase movie from what? They went from California to Boston.
Yep. I think
along the way.
I think like page 1 was in California, page 2 was in Colorado, and page 3 was it in Boston? I think
it was in Boston. So
it's convenient that all 3 of them were right there in the United States.
Yeah. Now, I am Jim the Joe Junkie, so I correlated both of these movies. Both the movies had the same kind of, capture things and find things. Mm-hmm. Very similar to the first 3 miniseries of the G.I. Joe cartoon.
Oh my gosh, they really are.
They had to go and find, the first one, they had to find the stuff for the
mass device,
then the weather dominator, and then destroy the Pyramid of Darkness, all similar things. So that's how I correlated those. But overall, a story for what was considered a horror movie, I thought it was pretty good.
Fair enough. You're absolutely right. When I watched both of these, I was like, these are fetch quest movies. This is like very much how you build a video game. I gotta find this and find that. It's kind of like on the first one, which is what you were saying. You're like, okay, it's a fetch quest movie. And I love that they kept that theme in the second one. They're like, no, we have a formula.
Yeah, and we'll talk about it in the second one, but they just went from the East Coast to the West Coast in the second one.
Man, the whole Warlock's getting those frequent flyer miles. All right, Jason, I've been talking too much. Your thoughts on 1989, the original Warlock?
Yeah, not much to say that you guys didn't say. It was a fetch quest. I guess I'm always a sucker for the man out of time, or in this case, the men out of time element of it. So that added a little bit of a unique layer. It's a fetch quest in which these two men find themselves in the future, and I think they both adapted relatively well, relatively quickly. I would have just been like, I'd still be standing frozen in place, like, what in the world is this? But yeah, I thought for the most part, it was functional. I wouldn't say there was anything really special. We had a MacGuffin, and we had a good guy going to find it and a bad guy going to find it, and the two are going to come to loggerheads at the end, and we will have a showdown, and that's what we got.
Fair enough. Let's move forward in time a bit to 1993 with the Warlock 2 Armageddon. Jim.
Again, very similar to the second movie, or the first movie, pardon me. This time, the heroes already were in that time frame. They had to capture the stones on this one, the 5 stones.
Right. Stones,
yes.
Not pages. Stone.
Now, yeah. But it didn't copy the first one completely. They still had some different things they had to do, and the story of the training with the heroes and how they're passing on from the druids to the younger, that was intriguing because they didn't know what they had to do, but the villain, he knew what he had to do. So they were kind of playing catch up. The heroes were. So I thought that was pretty good. Overall, again, story was good. Similar to the first one.
I agree. It's not too far off. I feel like they almost just took the first one and maybe perfected it a little bit, added a couple extra fun layers. I don't know.
They almost made it from the first one. They added kind of the teen side of it, kind of made it into a teen horror movie.
You're right. You could almost just cut and paste what I said on the first one and say it again right here for the second one. Same element, got the MacGuffin, you got the bad guy coming back, different good guy coming after them this time, going to have the loggerheads in a showdown. But I think what made this one a little more interesting was the good guys were already established in this time period. And that in itself had some complexities. because they'd been charged with this responsibility, which made them kind of the outsiders to their community. So there's that element there, that strained element. And then there was a fraction within the group, right, where the preacher was like, I don't want to have any part of this anymore. And then you had the, kind of the old school druids, which are like, hey, this is what we got to do. And as the viewer, we weren't really sure what was all happening there. So there were some shocking moments in the movie that I was like, what is happening here? And so there was a bit more of a layered mystery, and the good guys were a little more interesting to me. And we'll talk about that a little more in the heroes part. But I think that element kind of elevated the story in Warlock 2 for me a little bit.
Absolutely. I picked up on all those same vibes. And we will talk about the hero in the next round. So I'll save any additionals I have for when we get there. For now, we will score these. Jason, on a scale of 1 to 10, you gave the story to the original Warlock film I
gave it a 6. It was pretty serviceable, had the man out of time element that I liked, but as far as original storytelling goes, not a lot of originality here, but serviceable.
And match game, I also gave it a 6. We are off to a match game start. Let's go to 1993. Warlock Armageddon. I got the feeling we both liked it a little more, so let's hear that score.
Yeah, I pushed that one up to 7 for the reasons that I stated. I thought there was a little more mystery element to the heroes. I wasn't really so much interested in the young two as I was in the old group. So maybe the young two didn't quite hit for me as much, and we'll talk about that in the next round. But the old guys really were interesting to me, and there were some mysterious elements that kept me hooked.
Match game number 2. I also gave it a 7. Let's see if Jim agrees with us. He has one bullet to give. He can pick which movie he thought had a better story. Do you like original Warlock or the sequel, Jim?
I did like the story a little bit better on the second one. So I'm going to give my bullet to Warlock Armageddon.
There you have it. That's round 1 in the bag. Over to Jason for round 2.
They mostly come at night. Mostly.
All right. So as promised, we're going to talk about the hero or the heroes of these two films. And let's just go ahead and get into it. Jim, what were your thoughts on the hero, the tracker, and his young lady accomplice there in Warlock?
Was she always young? There was a point where she was, 40, 60 years old?
Don't get me started, Jim. She was like, I'm 40, I'm going to die. I'm like, shut up. Shut up.
Yeah, I was the same, 40. Wait a minute. That was 7 years ago. No, you're not old yet.
I'm 52, man.
But the heroes in Warlock, I liked how he was portrayed as, a man out of time, how he had to understand the cars and different things around. Where did you draw water at, or where's your well, and just different things like that. And I liked how he had to adapt to find them. And probably one of my favorite parts was when he had to get on that plane, that scene where he's like, I don't want to fly in that. And then the lady friend, I have never seen a 60-year-old lady run that fast down a train. I wasn't sure that was real. I knew that wasn't real, but I don't know if I can run that fast now.
We'll have Jason get back to us in about 8 years.
I don't need to. I couldn't have caught that train now. Screw it. I'm going to die.
But overall, they were serviceable. Let's put it that way.
Serviceable. Not exactly stellar words to go by. What do you think about the great action actor Richard E. Grant? I can't say that straight. Yeah, this was 1989, man. We had Sly. We had Schwarzenegger. We had Bruce Willis.
All I could see was him in Hudson Hawk.
Hudson Hawk. I know.
As the crazy bad guy.
I know.
I was like, this is an odd choice, man. I mean, he did fine. Serviceable is a good word. But you're right. Even if they had a lower budget, I mean, certainly Roddy Piper was available. I mean, come on.
Oh, I would have loved to see Roddy Piper in that.
Warlock, more like Headlock, right?
That's right.
He wasn't bad. He was fine. I would say actually he rose above what I expected when I first saw him. I was like, he's in the Hudson Hawk guy. And by the end of it, I was like, yeah, he's good. And the girl was good too. It was very 1989. You know what's going to happen. She's going to be resistant, and then she's going to become annoying, and then she's going to become helpful. And then, they're probably going to fall in love. And pretty much all that happened. She carried it pretty well, though, because she did have to play 20-year-old version, 40-year-old version, 60-year-old version. Makeup effects were pretty good. But, yeah, don't look for a super high score, but I'm not going to poop on them either. I think Jim said it best. Serviceable stuff as far as the hero is concerned. But you got to remember, and we'll get there, the name of the movie is Warlock. So you don't want your hero to be cooler than your villain. And I think that may be why they cast down a little bit.
Well, no worries here, Jared. Well, and I wonder, too, because all the stuff I saw Richard E. Grant in kind of came after Warlock. So maybe I'm holding his current filmography against him a little bit more. Maybe that's unfair, because you're right. He did fine. So let's go over and talk about Warlock 2 and pitch it back to Jim and see what you thought of the heroes. Kind of a ensemble cast there for Warlock 2.
As was mentioned, you had the kind of the old guard and the new Jedi guard that they were teaching, like you mentioned in your summary. So when I watched that movie, I'm like, yeah, this is Star Wars with witchcraft.
Dark Wars.
But I did like how, I think you mentioned it, Jason, how the old were passing it on. I did question why they had to kill them before they could earn their powers. But my question, was the girl able to do things before she was killed? Because she was able to do something before she was killed, and then
I read it kind of as I was watching it, like she could do just enough. There was enough of an inkling, so she knew something was off. Something had to happen. She was having visions and premonitions, but she wasn't able to entirely tap into her power. And I think that those visions were really tied to the closer the Warlock came, the closer that conflict was coming, the more she was having those visions that was driving her to do that action where she could get resurrected and become, the powerful hero she was meant to be. That's how I interpreted it. I don't know. Jared, do you have any other thoughts?
She looked real pretty in those dresses she wore.
But I did also like, there was one part where they were in the woods and the bully met them, and you didn't know if she was going to be when she was attacking, controlling his heart. You didn't know if she was going to be the good person that she was supposed to be. There was that moment where like, ooh. So I did like that. But I think the heroes in the second one were much better and more depth to them.
I had to laugh with the bully scene because as I was watching it, I was like, so old dude's just going to leave his truck in the middle of the woods then, huh? And I was like, oh, wait, they needed that later.
Yeah.
It all came back. I was like, okay, well, you get past me because I made fun of it at the time.
I did too.
Back later, I was like, oh, okay.
I realized that because I remember earlier in the movie, they had to say, bright light or the sunlight?
Yep.
And I'm like, oh, yeah, there's those KC off-road lights. Yep.
Chekhov's gun right there.
I had no idea. I was clowning the movie Mystery Science Theater style. Like, are you just going to leave that there, are you, buddy? Oh, okay.
Well, just keep on going, Jared. Tell us what you thought of the heroes there from Warlock Armageddon.
Well, like we were talking about in the story, the heroes are a lot more compelling in this movie. And what's kind of funny is in your fun facts, too, we talked about new director and he wanted to spend too much money. They did in 38 days. I really got the impression they had like a tighter budget, but somehow they got so much more out of it in every aspect. And this is the aspect I think that shines the most. They got 3 really good character actors that I've seen in lots of other movies to play the 3 core druids. And then, like you said, they went ahead and added an extra layer in there where they have a fractured relationship because the preacher's kind of found God and he just wants to do the God thing and not the druid thing anymore. But he's also running interference for them when the town starts to blame them in their weird druid ways for things. He's like defending them. You can tell there's a rift, but somehow he's like stepping up for them. And so layered and cool. And that's just the 3 old guys, which granted, I think we all agree because we are 3 old guys. We're more interesting than the teenage kids. But
well, you had Riggs and Murtaugh's boss, man.
I know, right there. And then you got to add in the teenage kids. And you know what, though? As far as like teenagers in movies go, I watch a lot of 80s horror movies, like a lot of them. And, it probably says something about my character that 99 times out of 100, the teenage kids annoy me so much. I am rooting for the bad guys. I'm like, Jason Voorhees, track these people down now. I can't take their a-hole ways anymore. These kids weren't like that. They didn't tick me off. They were a little teenagery, right? But they weren't making really bad decisions. They were fully committed to helping stop the Warlock and embracing their new roles. So, yeah, you really have 3 old dudes, 2 young people, and they set it all up really well with showing the Druid stone setup thing, in the past at the very beginning. So, again, they got a lot of money. I think every dollar they put into this movie, they got it on the screen because there's so many layers, so many more layers than the 89 version. I don't know what their budgets were. I may do some research here in a second, but I would be shocked if they got more money for that sequel, but I'll let you know.
Well, alrighty then. I think all we have to do is score them. So, Jared, what are you going to give the score for the heroes in Warlock?
1989's Warlock, I thought they were good for a made-for-TV movie, and that's a 5 here on the show. So I gave them a 5.
So far, we're dressed right dressed. This is match game number 3. I gave them a 5 as well, and I don't give out 5s to many movies. I'm a generous scorer, but yeah, made for TV is what this thing was singing to me the whole way. So agree. All right, let's move it over to Warlock 2 Armageddon. What'd you give the heroes there?
Big separation here. Well, I don't know about big, but decent separation here. I gave them a 7. I thought there was enough compelling stuff that they did with it that doesn't cost you anything. It's just good writing. No more special effects budget needed. Really cool group of old dudes and bringing in the young people. 7.
I gave them a 7 as well. Match game number Laurel 4. Laurel says 4. Yeah, same reasons. I thought the old dudes really sold it. If it had just been the 2 youngins, it probably would have landed on about a 6. But man, the old druids really bumped it up for me.
I've got the information on the budgets, by the way.
Okay, this just in.
And yeah, check this out. The budget for the original Warlock in 1989 was $15 million. They made the sequel for $3 million. And I think we'll get to it in spectacle and all that, but I think in almost every level, look at my score sheet, literally every level, it outperforms the original. But in my opinion, but $15 million for the first one drops to $3 million for the second one, and they got way more out of that $3 million, in my opinion.
Interesting. Jim, you're going to have to lock and load that sniper bullet, that silver bullet for the werewolf. Who's going to get the round this time? We going with the Warlock or Warlock 2, the Armageddon?
I like the depth of the characters in Warlock 2 better. The old guys training the new ones. The teenagers, as Jared mentioned, didn't annoy me as much as I thought they would. I was worried about that as well. But no, overall, I'm going with Warlock 2, the Armageddon.
There you have it. Warlock 2 starting to walk away with it, Jared. I can feel it gaining some momentum, but I'm going to pass it back to you to see which of the 2 villains we liked better.
What are we going to do?
What are we going to do here?
There were 2 villains?
Well, let's get into round 3.
We all go a little mad sometimes.
Round 3 is the villain. How interesting is your villain? How engaging is your villain, man? Good villains make for great movies. Gotta be menacing, gotta be entertaining. And, well, we've got 2 movies here that have the same villain played by the same guy. So, spoiler alert, I'm going to give him the same score. But here, let's do an action film face-off first, all right? We do the back, forth thing. Let's just talk about Julian Sands as the Warlock, and you can kind of throw in thoughts if you have tweaks between 1 and 2. So we're going to break format a little bit. This time, Jason gets to go first. Jason, talk to me about Julian Sands as the Warlock, and feel free to differentiate, if you do, between the 2 movies, and then Jim will have you do the same thing.
Julian Sands as the Warlock. As I stated at the beginning of the show, first time watching these movies, you talked about, for fans of action film face-off, back when we did Blood and Bone, that Julian Sands, who had a pretty good role in Blood and Bone, was the Warlock in these movies. And when I saw Blood and Bone, I was like, that's a pretty good actor. And man, in both of these movies, he likes to chew the scenery. He is so charismatic. When you think of horror films, anyway, when I think about grotesque Freddy Krueger and Jason Voorhees and the Mike Myers mask. And here you got this young man that's just handsome, kind of charming, well-dressed, and just plain evil. So I don't know. I guess if I had to sum it up, I'd be like charismatic evil. And just does such a good job. What a commanding presence he has on the screen. So much so, in fact, that in a couple of instances, and here's kind of, maybe this is where Warlock, the first one, maybe is a little better than Warlock, the second one. Richard E. Grant, I was kind of making fun of him a little bit, but as an actor, he holds up pretty well against Julian Sands, as those two young couples do not. So it's almost the acting ability, the delta between their acting abilities really kind of shows in Warlock 2, the Armageddon, more so than it does in the first one. So I think that might be the one kind of weak point in Warlock 2. Not that the two were bad by any stretch of the imagination, but when you compared them to Julian Sands' character, you know, it was pretty apparent that he was shouldering a lot of the acting in that film. I've talked a lot about him. A very fascinating character, interesting. Really glad I watched both these movies. I feel like I've been missing out on something all these years. And I'll let Jim talk a little bit.
Jim, what's left to say?
Not a whole lot, really. As a villain, he did a great job in both the movies. There were parts I enjoyed in both, different scenes he had there, but you could definitely tell he was into the role. And he put everything he had into it, and he was convincing. I don't know of anybody else that could fill that role as good as he did. So, yeah, Jason nailed it on a lot of the aspects of him.
He does that. Jason does that. Again, Jason really laid it out well in good detail. I would just say, even though I'm going to give him the same score for both movies, the only thing I would add is he definitely did a good job finding his character in 1989's Warlock. And then I almost feel like he's having a little more fun with it in the sequel. Like he's really comfortable with it. He nailed it so well. They called him back even with their limited $3 million. I know he got a hefty chunk of that $3 million. I know he did. And he's worth it. And I think he's just comfortable and having fun. But anyway, let's just score him. Jason, let's go to Warlock 89. What did you rate Julian Sands in that one?
I gave him a solid 7. He is well above average, pleasantly surprising to me.
I'm a bit of a homer for Julian Sands since this is your first foray into Julian Sands as a Warlock. I'd seen him before on that VHS of Part 2. Really like him. I gave him an 8. To me, if you are the face of a franchise like he is, and I'm a homer for him, I gave him an 8.
I thought about an 8, but I was like, I got to see Armageddon 3 first before
I do too.
Start giving out 8s.
I have not seen Armageddon 3, but I'm going to. What about 2 though? Did you keep him at a 7, or did you feel like he moved anywhere up or down?
I guess if Joe November were here, I'd give him a 7.5, but I just kept him at a 7. I thought his acting was consistent between both films. I think the direction was a little better, or maybe he had a little more control of the character, like you said. So he was given a little more rope, a little more leeway. So I think he was a little better in Armageddon 2, but performance wise, pretty much neck and neck.
I promise you I'd score him the same. I have him at an 8 there as well. So yeah, we're both very consistent on him, but no match came. Jim, here's an unenviable spot for you. You have to pick which Julian Sands performance you liked better.
And this was actually the category that I was worried about, because he did great in both of them. And I was kind of worried, okay, which one? I wish I could take that bullet and split it, like they did they do an arrow with arrows, split right down the middle, but I can't do that. I am going to have to go with the first Warlock. That's where he created the character. And now, is he in the third one too or not?
Warlock 3, The End of Innocence, has no Julian Sands.
Oh.
They went Sands free.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm not watching Warlock 3 now.
Okay.
1999 direct-to-video. Bruce Payne takes on the role. Yeah. It's Roger Corman Studios. Anyway, I'm sorry. We got derailed.
Yeah. No, we did. I did that. I'm sorry. But where he started the role, and I liked his performance in that one a little bit better.
Fair enough. That is the end of round 3.
All right, I'm going to pick it up for round 4, which we all know is the spectacle.
You hang up on me again, I'll gut you like a fish.
Spectacle is the stunts. The spectacle is the effects, choreography, the music, soundtrack, the visual effects, the lighting, all the stuff that we throw into a blender and make a good spectacle movie, be it action films or, in this case, horror films. So let me kick it over to Jared to start it off this time with Warlock 89. Those flight scenes were something else, weren't they, Jared?
Well, that was definitely going to come up in my conversation. They were okay for 89. Like, I was like, well, it's 89, so he doesn't do a lot of flying, but some of them are just so janky, and I'm just like, yeah, you almost should have just left that out. Like, when he originally starts to fly. Now, I do love that he gets creative with his pose, a little elbow forward kind of thing. Like, he doesn't do a Superman. It does his own thing, and that was unique. But then they kind of did this special effect that wasn't so special, and I wanted to give it a pass because 89, but then I was like, wait a minute. I saw Superman from 1978, and that was convincing as all get out.
It can be done.
It didn't have the budget of it, but if Jared was to fix Warlock when he first takes off, I would have done the close zoom in of him doing the cool elbow thing. And instead of that janky sort of pasted in, pulled across where he flies by I think it's a police officer or somebody in a car.
Yeah, it was a police officer.
I might have just done like a shadow effect, like just a shadow of him zooming by. Like, we know he's flying. Anyways.
Yeah, you got to jaws that. You just got to jaws it.
Yeah. That would be probably my low point in spectacle, but there's a lot of high points. Costuming was good. I like the little props they had, like the little compass that finds him. I thought the music guys did really good. It's not super memorable, but it always fits the mood, and it enhances. It does enhance. I couldn't hum you the tune from Warlock right now, so it's not to that level, but it's good and it's solid, and it's there when you need it, and it's beat for beat. So nothing wrong there. Like I said, costuming looks good. Other than that, decent flick. It still boggles my mind they had 5 times the amount of movie. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about the second one in a minute. We need to hear from Jim.
Yeah. And I agree with you on the soundtrack because, as we've talked about before, you really notice that stuff more. But I was paying attention to it in this film and just noticing, this mood music really is helping to augment my immersion into this scene a little bit. So, Jim, what do you have to add?
Not a whole lot to the spectacle. There wasn't a lot of spectacle. As Jared said, you had the flying scene. Really, that was about it for special effects or anything like that. And then you had the wardrobe. But I did like some of the different scenes that they used. Now, I do have to ask you, Jared, though, you mentioned the compass. Which compass?
Yeah, the witch compass.
Yeah, the witch compass.
Witch compass.
The witch compass. The compass for finding witches, yes.
Did you just drag me into a bit? Because I feel like
I did.
I think you baited me into a bit, and I took it like a fish, like saw I'm going to take this. He said witch compass. It was like podcasting with Pat. He's so proud of himself. and I guess he should be because I took the bait.
I did too. So bask in your glory, Jim, while Jared talks about Warlock 2, Armageddon, and the spectacle therein.
Once again, I cannot believe this movie had 1/5 of the budget of the original. Now, to be fair, the original was filmed in 89. The sequel filmed in like 92. 3 years of technological advancement might have gone a long way, but I don't know. At 1/5 the budget, and literally everything looks better and sounds better. Everything across the board. They even had to do a fair amount of special effects. One of the ones that sticks out in my mind is like Julian Sands is in town. It's almost like a Western moment with the old guys come out with the shotgun. And he does like this levitation thing walking down the stairs. And like, it wasn't perfect, but for that time period and that budget, I was like, that's pretty good, you know?
It looked pretty sweet. Yeah.
And they had to do the effects with the druid stuff at the very beginning of the film. They had to do the effects with, training the kid with the baseball and the fire and all that. And, you could tell it was effects work, but it was still better than the flight scene from 1989. So I am just mind boggled. And again, there could have been in that 3 years some good quantum leaps in movie making technology, maybe some stuff that's more affordable they didn't have in 89. That could totally be it. But it looks better. It sounds better. The costumes are better. Everything's better at a fifth of the budget.
Yes, just say at a fifth of the price. Jim, anything to add there?
No, I agree with Jared. The spectacle was better on the second one. I liked the scene on the street with the Warlock walking down the stairs. I watched it twice, actually, just to make sure I had. And each time I was like, yeah, that's for that year. That's pretty good.
Not bad.
The other question I have is when that creature was coming out of the pit, was that the dog from Ghostbusters? Did it look like the dog from Ghostbusters?
There is no Dana, only
Zool came out of the pit.
But no, the overall spectacle, the scenes, they were all excellent with the second one, with Warlock Armageddon.
I will say that young man trained awful hard to get his ass beat that fast. Like, for a minute, I thought, did I miss something? Listen more to this fight? But it just said, scene open, boy takes ass whooping. And
that boy is the Rocky Balboa of the franchise. Because he takes just a relentless series of beatings and damage. It just keeps on coming, man.
Yeah,
he knows what he's worth. He's going to get what he's worth.
Yep. Got to be willing to take the hits. And he was willing.
I also have to just be like, if we're talking about spectacle, let's just put it out there. All right. The more HD you watch this movie in,
HD is nuts.
Exactly. Julian Sands junk makes an appearance.
It does, man. We saw the.
Yeah. And one of the really good special effects scenes is like when he's first born, and we'll probably get into that in the best horror scene. So I don't want to steal too much from that. But that was like a really well done, creepy horror moment. Again, everything's better than the second one. And if you're a big fan of Julian Sands' junk, that's going to be available to you.
Oh, man. Well, let's score these films. Jared, what are you giving the spectacle to Warlock?
The original 1989 Warlock, little generous. I thought it was better than a made-for-TV movie. And the music really, because that gets it to a 6. And then the music being really on point, I thought was particularly good, and I like the costuming, so I went all the way to 7. Feels a little generous, but I gave it a 7.
Yeah, you were a little more generous than I was. I landed at a 6, and I am not changing my mind. I feel pretty solid about that 6.
Well, you know what, Jason? 7 minus 1 is 6. I think we might have something to talk about later on for a -1.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Before we do that, though, let's talk about the spectacle for Warlock Armageddon. What'd you give the score for Warlock Armageddon? I'm having a hard time getting words out of my mouth.
Warlock Armageddon. Much improved over the original. Again, I was kind of the original with the 7. I went with an easy 8 to the second one. It just had so many great moments on this, as we're learning now, limited budget. It looks so good for what they were working with. This is a director and producer that knows how to get every penny on the screen, and I gave it an 8.
Again, a little more generous than me. I landed on a 7 for this one. But we're not done yet. Jim, who gets the sniper bullet?
I think people know where my sniper bullets are going to go before you even get to me, but I'm going with Warlock Armageddon 2. The graphics were better. The scenes were a little bit better. Just the background, all the different locations, I liked a little bit better.
All right. Well, there you have it, folks. It's in the books. I'm going to pass this to Jared. Folks better grab a soda or something because there are a lot of horror scenes in both of these movies. He'll be passing them back to me here before too long.
You know, you can just pick the highlights, right? Like
they're all highlights. They're all great.
Let's get into round 5.
You want to know what happens to an eyeball when it gets punctured?
Round 5 is best action scene, or in this case, best horror scene, because this is Horror Film Face Off. So let's do that thing where we start with Warlock 89. Jason, lay out what you thought were the high points of the horror scenes in Warlock 1989.
Scene number 1, Warlock escapes from the 17th century to modern day USA, or as I call it, my hammies are all stretched out and I'm ready to run. They had him like stretched out, I think. Never mind.
No, I got it because his hands were tied to his toes, which was unique.
Warlock murders the homeowner in that home that he ends up coming into, or as I called it, you watch your tongue.
I thought it was good tongue-in-cheek humor.
Yeah. And then he comes back and he curses, what was her name, the lady?
Movie girl.
Yeah, movie girl. And I just called that one. She says I'm 40? Like that's a bad thing? What an ass. Warlock kills the kid and learns to fly. I called that one, I believe I can fly. I just have to eat his thigh.
No.
Oh. That was my favorite one. And then the barn fight. And I called that one, let's try something in this vein.
The weather vein.
Weather vein, right. And then there's the grave fight with stop killing yourself, stop killing yourself, stop killing yourself. So those are the ones.
All right, Jim, what was your favorite horror film, action film? Yeah, what was your favorite moment from Warlock?
I actually liked the graveyard scene, the final scene there. Stop killing yourself. I like the twist that the last piece was buried with Redfern.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That was interesting.
Was pretty cool.
So I like that one.
All right. Weasel Skull, what was your favorite action scene?
I kind of like the barn fight. I mean, it was so cheesy. I laughed in a couple places, but I really liked when it led to the train yard and her getting that bracelet back. I was invested in that scene. I know, let's just run pretty fast, but I'd be running pretty fast too. I'd have some adrenaline. I'd have some initiative to get that bracelet. I kind of cheered because at first I thought, she almost had it. And then it was like, she didn't get it. She didn't get it. Drake and I were watching it together. We're like, she got it. She got it.
Same thing for me. As I was watching it with a couple of old high school buddies of mine, we actually watched these back to back. Yeah, there's a certain investment in that scene. And I'm a big fan of Castlevania, the video game. So I got all excited when he got like his salted whip. I was like, oh, it was like Castlevania, man. It was pretty cool. Yeah, there was definitely stakes involved. Like that train, we did the same thing. 3 grown men were like, oh, she got it. She got it. And when the weather vane came down, I started singing, You're So Vain.
Movies about you.
So yeah, we both have stupid jokes as well. But yeah, no, I agree with you. But not faulting Jim on his final scene at all. That one was also very good.
Yep, really good scene. I thought about it.
I definitely did too. Let's shift gears and go to Warlock Armageddon 1993. So much to pick from. Everybody get comfortable. I think Jason's got a lot of scenes to lay out.
I'm going to go right from the opening credits. I was riveted to those opening credits with the druids having to make the stand while that woman was like about to give birth to a devil baby or something. And they break out the ruins and they stop her from being possessed. I called that one, Don't Forget Your Copay. It was
it's funny. It's funny.
Yeah, okay. Then there's the Warlock being reborn. We talked about that one. And I called that one, that is one heck of a gender reveal. We mentioned his junk being like very prominent. Let's see. Then there's the cab ride when he goes and just pretty much turns that cabbie into a zombie. We didn't really talk about that, but that was pretty cool. And I called that one, his meter is no longer running.
Hey, that's fair.
Very good. Then there's the elevator scene. That was actually a really good tense scene when the one hunter goes to try to square off by himself against the Warlock in the elevator. And I called that one Blood in an Elevator.
But you knew he wasn't coming out.
I was
going down. I got to give this one credit to you, Jared. This was the hitchhiker that he picks up. And when you said, which way you headed? The which can be a double entendre. Oh. Then there's the creep show. The one where he goes and gets the rune from the carnival barker there. We called that one Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Warlock's got you by the.
Always got to make sure I drop a bleep in there somewhere.
Yeah, I was going through it and I realized I didn't have one. So next one is the art dealer, the one where he turns the guy into a work of art. And we called that one, You Can't Spell Picasso Without an I.
Because of his eye.
Because, yeah, his eye was in there too. And then I just did the whole final battle scene with the kids and everything. And I called that one Pipe Down.
So like he got impaled by a pipe.
Yeah, because he got impaled by a pipe.
Ouch.
That's a lot, man. There was a lot happening in that movie.
That is a lot. And he was seducing that fashion design lady.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And she gave him the stone for and he just dropped her. She fell
I
into
forgot about that one, but that could have made the cut.
I did like that one. I'm going to give it some serious consideration.
That was a lot of blood for one body, though, wasn't it?
What do we call that one? Like model bad behavior or something? Only bad behavior.
She needs a tourniquet on the catwalk. On the catwalk.
Too sexy for the stone. Too sexy for the stone.
Anyways, we have plenty to pick from. We can run a gamut here. We'll start with Jim. Jim, what was your favorite action scene in Armageddon 2 or horror scene?
There was quite a few of them. And there seemed to be more in the second one than the first one. Again, I'm going to go with the last 10, 15 minutes of the movie where they're the showdown in the town, in the woods, keeping it simple, but they were all good. None of them were like, why does this scene in here? They all had reason, but I'm going with the last one again.
You can't go wrong.
I'm boring, I know.
Climax scenes for a reason, man.
That's right. That's right.
So, Jason, which one do you like best, man?
I did love the climax scene. I'm not going to lie. It was really good, really well done. But for me, the one that gripped me the most was the little carnival scene. That creeped me out. As far as the creep factor was concerned, the moment he walks in that tent and you had that little lady that was psychic and could read, and then he just shoves her in that Iron Maiden. How he toys with the carnival barker there, and gets the stone, and in the end traps him, and then it's revealed to be this hellish landscape. It was so trippy. And again, Julian Sands was just having so much fun with that scene. You could just tell. I was sitting there looking at those mannequins like, I think those are people. Are those people? This is good. I was on edge for that guy. I was like, just give him a damn stone, man. Don't mess around here. So, yeah, I'm going to go with that carnival scene. For me, it was pretty powerful.
I could see that. And we are going to spread it around because I'm going to be honest with you. Every time I think about Warlock Armageddon, I'm going to remember that birth scene, man. Birth scene. What a way to start your movie, like to introduce or reintroduce your character. Because it's like she's getting all prettied up for the evening. You're like, oh, I wonder where this is going to go. You don't know where it's going to go. You don't know.
It turned sideways fast.
Oh, my gosh. I was just like, what is going on? So in that way, it kind of reminds me of Blade, which Blade has a great climax as well. But I love that kickoff scene of the bloodbath. It just grabs me and keeps me. And I felt similarly about Warlock Armageddon.
Well, and I think it really kind of tells with this movie, there were a lot of really good scenes. I mean, the three of us each picked a different one, and you could make an argument for several of the other ones listed in here too. So just a lot of good, scary fun to be had throughout this entire movie.
Definitely.
Something that we probably should have mentioned earlier in the story, but when he was getting these stones, the people that had them had to give them up willingly.
Yes.
So in these horror scenes, I think you mentioned it, Jared, you didn't know it wasn't going to turn out the way you thought it was or how they were going to give that stone up. And once they did, it was a twist. I thought that was interesting with all those scenes.
I'm glad you mentioned that too. It really gave it, and especially kind of the way Jason described the carnival scene, it really gave it one of those sort of House of Mystery DC comics from the 70s feel, like where you've got this being or this demon, or he's basically a demon, right? Or he's a warlock. And he has to get it willingly. Like, it just feels like all those vignettes feel like those little 6-8 page stories from a DC comic of the horror variety in the 70s. All right, let's go back and score these. Let's go back to Warlock of 89. Jason, I think you and I both like Barn Fight. What'd you score it?
I scored it a 6. I mean, it had some great elements to it, but it did have some cheesy effects. So I'm going to hold it a 6 for that one.
We are back to match game. That will be our 5th one for the episode. Let's see what happens when we go to Warlock Armageddon. We're all over the place, but they're all like a lot of fun. They all have those great horror vignette moments in them. What'd you score?
A lot of these I would score a solid 7, and that's what I scored this one, 7.
And again, just the captivating, that got so weird so fast factor of the gender reveal that you called. I will always remember it. It'll stick with me. In fact, when I rewatch this, like that's the part I was like, is this as wonky as I remember? Yeah, it is. And it stuck with me so well. I'm going to give it an 8. Jim, which movie do you think had better horror scenes?
Warlock Armageddon 2, I think, had the better horror scenes. I think they were more thought out, had more meaning to the storyline than the first one. So, Warlock Armageddon 2.
I know, man. 1/5 the budget, double the horror scenes. Maybe triple.
All right. You think we're done? We're not done. We got the deduction round. So it is time to play the round of the ridiculous to see if we're going to take any points off from either of these films for what we think are the low part of the film. So I'm just going to lay it out there, Jared. You kind of hinted we might have a deduction coming. So go ahead and lay it on me. What you got?
I tend to do deductions for things that just really take me out of the movie. And that flying scene, you mentioned it. They should have jazzed it. They should have, again, props to him for selling it with a cool and unique flying pose that I'd never seen anywhere before and seemed like how a warlock might fly. I don't know. But that janky special effect just kind of took me out there for a minute. And I was like, It was one of those things where as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, we'll be talking about that on the show. So I will give it a -1 on that. They would have been better off to just cut that scene out.
Yeah, I had that as well. And the reason why I'm giving it a -1 in addition to a low point in spectacle is because I can forgive it if the scene allows it, right? But for me, it was kind of a sad, dark moment on how he flies, but murdering that kid. Drake and I were watching it together. We're like, oh, that's sad. That's sick. That's dark. And then it was what
look at him go.
Drake and I were just like, man, this, and it really kind of takes away. It does take away from that scene. Yeah, -1 for me for that scene as well. You're right. Your idea is spot on, man. They could have used the radar gun. They could have shown the close up of the wind like flying through his face, and then just shown the shadow right over the car and maybe rock the police car a little bit or something to really just sell that.
If he could fly, why did he have to hitch a ride on the airplane?
He ran out of kid fat.
Just a thought, you know.
I mean, even the Warlock's like, man, I can't be boiling up 2 kids in one day. That's just wrong.
Because he was following them. He knew that they knew where they were going, but he needed to follow them to get to where that book was hidden because he had no clue. They had the clue, so he was trailing them.
That makes sense.
Any deduction for Warlock Armageddon?
No.
Me neither.
I thought it was this very rare thing where the second one is just better all around. And I still like 89 Warlock. So yeah, no, I'm not taking anything away from Warlock 2, the Armageddon. That was fun as heck.
The same. Yeah, I didn't have any minuses for that one either. All right, Jim. Any airing of grievances? Anything that we missed?
No, I think you mentioned, the flying scene was one. I don't really have any other grievances, but I do have to mention in Armageddon 2, Julian Sands was birthed, and the guy knocked on the door. Was that the actor from Gremlins?
Oh, I don't know.
I think it was.
I can't remember.
It is. It was. I looked it up. It was Zach Galligan. It was the actor
the guy, the main star of Gremlins. Okay, I was like thinking of the dad, and no.
He stole his clothes.
Black.
Oh, the black and the blackout. Oh my gosh, that was the Gremlins kid.
Yeah.
Good eye, Jim Meal.
Nice.
But
anyway, really, no grievances other than what you've already mentioned. So,
all right.
Well, that's the end of our official rounds. Okay, folks, don't worry if you haven't been keeping up with the math at home. We do that for you at Action Film Face Off. Let's check in on Match Game. If you guessed 5 match games and you guessed right. Looking at sniper points, Jim gave 4 of his bullets to Armageddon 2 and 1 bullet to the original Armageddon. And looking at the judges' scorecards, the winner of this episode of Action Film Face Off with a score of 77 to 61 is Warlock 2, the Armageddon.
Congratulations to Warlock Armageddon. Now let's head over to the randomizer and find out what the years are going to be for our next episode. My brother Jared will be pulling a film from...
Choose your destiny.
2006. And I will bring a film from...
Choose your destiny.
1987. What will those films be? We'll tease them on social media for those of you who want to watch before listening, and we're thinking of you, Dave. Or you can tune in next episode and find out. Till then, I'm Jason Weasel Skull Albrecht, and you can find me on social media at Jason Albrecht on Threads and Instagram.
And you can find me, Jared Albrecht, the Yard Sale Artist, a.k.a. Death Probe, at Yard Sale Artist on X, Facebook, Instagram. It's all at Yard Sale Artist. You can check out my artwares at www.theyardsaleartist.com. Jim, where can folks find you?
You can find me on Facebook at Jim Miel, JIMMIEL, and on Twitter, X, as Jim the Joe Junkie.
Love it. Be sure to check out all the shows under the Longbox Crusade umbrella by subscribing to Longbox Crusade on all the podcatchers out there or on YouTube, or you can directly check out the shows at www.longboxcrusade.com. If you'd like to send a question or a comment, you can do that by hitting us up on social media. It's at Longbox Crusade, whether it is on X or Facebook or Instagram or YouTube. It's all at Longbox Crusade. We also have our own Twitter X account. It's at AFFO Podcast, and that one's more direct to just... I'll say me and Jason, but Jason left the X a while back, so it's really just a direct line to me. And speaking of direct lines, you can leave us a voicemail with your thoughts. You can complain about our decisions. You can, agree with us wholeheartedly, whatever you want to do. 707-532-5269. That's 707-532-LBOX.
Pick up the phone.
Pick up the phone, because the caller is inside the house. This is Horror Film Face. Anyway, thanks for tuning in. We appreciate you listening. Until next episode, keep those silver bullets handy
and your garlic fresh.
The intro and outro theme to this show and all of our Action Film Face-Off shows are done by musical genius Joe November. Check out his SoundCloud at JOSEFLIN99. You will not regret it. With your real cleaned up beard and everything.
Yeah.
And I'm being very sincere here. It's not like a joke or anything, because I like the person I'm about to compare you to. You look a bit like Joey Fatone. Don't know if you've ever got that one before.
No, I don't.
All right. You know who he is?
Vaguely, yes.
I think he was one of the NSYNC guys.
Oh.
Yeah, one of those kids. Yeah.
But I see him. He guests on Impractical Jokers from time to time. He's just a real fun guy and just a really cool dude to be around. So it's a complete compliment. Just so you know.
I was going to take it that way one way or the other.
Okay. Well, good. Not bad. Whenever I hear What Lies Beneath, I have to bust out this fun fact. All right. So these two movies should always be connected in your mind. What Lies Beneath and Castaway with Tom Hanks. Because it's the exact same crew, director, everybody. What they did was they filmed all the front end stuff with Tom Hanks. And then he needed to lose all that weight for once he's on the island for, a couple of years. So they took a break from filming Castaway. They went, that exact crew went and filmed What Lies Beneath while Tom Hanks lost all the weight. And then they came back and finished Castaway. So it's the movie they filmed while Tom Hanks lost a ton of weight for Castaway. That's my fun.
Interesting. I did not know that.
Yeah, it's all the same people, like all the same production crew. It's like everybody but Tom Hanks. And I think Wilson the volleyball stayed behind as well.
He didn't have to lose any weight. He could stay in the same shape the whole way through. We're gonna have to cut this out, but that's to be 40.
Here, boil some of my flesh so you can fly, Warlock.
Wow. Yeah, you'll have to cut that out.
Maybe not even make the outtakes.
And more boobies.
And more Julian Sands penis.
Something for everyone.